What if Ferrari engineers already know that the SF26 has something that others still can't copy? Because what came out of Maranello after the Bahrain test was not euphoria, it was something much more dangerous: contained confidence. While publicly they speak of caution, internally the message is clear: the package for Australia is not a simple evolution, it is a technical statement. In Bahrain we saw a fast Ferrari. But what we didn't see, maybe even bigger. Because when the engineers themselves acknowledge that the car's rear concept is difficult to replicate, and that degradation is under control like never before, that's not marketing. That's a warning. Australia will be the first real test. And today we're going to look at exactly what impactful message Ferrari is sending to the rest of Formula One. Before the light goes out at Albert Park, Ferrari arrived at the Bahrain test with more than just a new car. It came with a concept that, according to what emerges from the internal analysis, represents the project with the greatest real potential since 2017 to 2018. And that, in a team like Ferrari, is not a light statement. It is a structural statement. The first thing that changed was not the stopwatch, it was the tone of the paddock. Engineers and analysts began to talk about an unusual combination in modern Formula One: aerodynamic efficiency, tire management, and top speed in the same package. Typically, when a car excels in one of these areas, it sacrifices another. That didn't seem to be happening here. And that is the first sign that we are not facing an incremental improvement, but rather a very well-conceived technical base. At Sakir, the SF26 finished with the best combined lap. Leclerc dropped to 1 minute and 31.992 seconds with C4, beating Norris's best time with C3 by about 0.2. But what was truly relevant was not the holder of the best time, but the way in which he achieved it. The car showed a homogeneous balance between sectors, good traction and stability during late braking without excessively punishing the front axle. That technically means stable platform. And a stable platform is the foundation of any champion car. The engineers who analyzed the long runs detected something even more important: a surprisingly contained degradation. In a regulation where thermal management is critical, Ferrari seemed to work the tires within the optimal window without aggressive temperature spikes. In previous seasons, that was precisely the weak point. Now it became a silent fortress. And this is where the message becomes impactful. There were no grandiloquent statements. In fact, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Vasseur publicly insisted that the timing means nothing, and that the package for Melbourne, although aggressive, is still in the operational understanding phase. They talk about understanding the limits of the SF26, especially in hybrid management and transitioning between active aerodynamics modes. But when a team insists so much on caution, it is often because it knows the potential is there and does not want to put unnecessary pressure on before the first Grand Prix. Additionally, the volume of laps completed without significant issues allowed time to be spent comparing rear wing setups and hybrid maps rather than searching for an exhibition lap. That's technical confidence. It is not about hiding weaknesses but about refining strengths. But the real core of the message is in the car's architecture. Ferrari has built the SF26 around an aggressive concept in the rear area and the gearbox that has allowed the introduction of aerodynamic solutions described as impossible to copy in the short term. This is not a simple visible piece that another team can replicate in 2 races. It is structural integration. It is designed from the DNA of the car. Australia will be the first real validation. Albert Park is not secure. It is a route with changing grip, traction zones, long straights, and strong braking. If platform stability and tire management are moved there, the message will cease to be internal and become a public warning. Ferrari did not shout in Bahrain. But he made something much more dangerous clear. For the first time in years, the limit of the car does not seem to be in the concept, but in how much they dare to squeeze it. If Bahrain was the laboratory, Australia will be the public trial. Because it is one thing to set benchmarks in a controlled test, and quite another to sustain that performance when the stopwatch decides the grid, strategy, and narrative of the championship. And this is where the message from Ferrari engineers takes on an even greater dimension. In Sakir we saw clear signs: homogeneous balance between sectors, stability under braking, good traction, and surprisingly contained degradation. But Albert Park is a completely different scene. It is a semi-urban layout where the evolution of the track changes session by session, where confidence in the front axle during long braking is key and where efficiency on the straight can make a difference in real, not simulated, overtaking. Ferrari arrives in Melbourne with a package described internally as aggressive, but still in the phase of full understanding, especially in hybrid power and transition between active aerodynamic modes. That detail is crucial. It means the car not only has mechanical and aerodynamic performance, but a level of strategic complexity that they are still fine-tuning. And if they manage to optimize this hybrid management in a circuit where power delivery and energy recovery are decisive, the impact can be immediate. In addition, there is a factor that can tip the balance: the SF20SIX's tolerance to changes in height and rake without losing effective load. At a circuit like Albert Park, where potholes, variations in asphalt, and the need to adjust the car between qualifying and the race are constant, that structural stability can translate into a wider operating window. And a car with a wide window is a consistent car. It does not depend on perfect conditions to perform. Australia will therefore not only validate whether the SF26 is fast, it will validate if the concept is transferable to a real pressure environment, if thermal management is maintained under traffic, if the rear stability allows you to attack curbs without compromising balance, whether hybrid energy responds under competitive stress. Because if all this is confirmed, the shocking message that came out of Maranello after Bahrain will cease to be a technical warning and will become a direct threat to the championship. And then the question will no longer be whether Ferrari is fast. It will be if the others can react in time. If the Australian Grand Prix confirms what the engineers hinted at after the Bahrain tests, then we will not simply be talking about a good first race. We will be talking about a structural change in the balance of power. Because what Ferrari has hinted at is not a one-off improvement. It is the existence of a technical base with real room for growth. In Bahrain, we saw a car with homogeneous balance, stability under braking, and controlled degradation. We also saw an aggressive rear architecture that allows aerodynamic solutions that are difficult to replicate in the short term. And that, in Formula One, is what separates a competitive car from a dominant car. If in Australia the SF26 demonstrates that it can translate that aerodynamic efficiency, thermal management, and structural stability to a real pressure environment, then the message will be devastating to its rivals. Because it will not mean that Ferrari got the setup right on a specific circuit. It will mean that the concept works. And when the concept works, development becomes a ladder, not a patch. The most disturbing detail for the rest of the grid is that Ferrari still talks about understanding the limits of the car, especially in hybrid management and the transition between active aerodynamic modes. This implies that the ceiling has not been reached, that what was seen in Bahrain might not have been the maximum performance. And if a car is already competitive before exploiting its full operational potential, the room for improvement is a direct threat. Furthermore, the SF20SIX's tolerance to height and rake variations without losing effective load suggests something even more worrying for other teams. It is an adaptable car. And in a long season where the calendar alternates urban circuits, high-load layouts, and low-resistance tracks, adaptability is synonymous with consistency in points. If Ferrari adds strongly from Australia, it will not only accumulate points. You will gain inertia. And inertia in Formula One is psychological as well as technical. Rivals begin to react. Development priorities change. They reallocate resources. They rush with updates that don't always work. And that's where the championships lean. The impactful message from engineers is not, "We are the fastest." It is, "We have built something that is difficult to copy and has room for growth." If Australia validates that, the narrative of the season will transform. It will no longer be a specific fight race by race. It will be a development race against a concept that seems solid from its DNA. And then the big question will no longer be whether Ferrari can win in Melbourne. It will be if this is the beginning of the project that returns Maranello to the center of the championship. Not for a flash of speed, but for structural superiority. What the engineers hinted at was neither euphoria, nor empty promises, nor grandiose headlines. It was something much more disturbing for the rest of the grid: structural safety. The SF26 showed aerodynamic efficiency, braking stability, solid traction, and surprisingly controlled tire degradation. And all this without the team talking about having reached its limit. The most impactful message was not the best time. It was that the concept seems to have scope. That the rear architecture allows solutions that are difficult to copy. That the car tolerates setup variations without losing effective load. That they are still fully understanding hybrid management and the aerodynamic transition. That is, what you see might not be the ceiling. And in Formula One, when a team is competitive before reaching its ceiling, that changes the championship. Australia is not only the first race. It is the first public validation of a project that is internally perceived as the most promising in years. If the performance moves to Albert Park, the message will cease to be technical and become sporting. Ferrari is not reacting to the regulations, it is taking advantage of it. Leave me in the comments what you think about all this.